times. Now, as we all know, we are living in unprecedented times, and there is a lot of uncertainty surrounding us uh, from the virus and general biosafety questions as well. Now, there are questions, queries, doubts, a lot of myths that we gather largely from the WhatsApp University, and we build a certain worldview around the aspects of biosafety, biohazard, and the COVID situation overall. To address some of the myths and put the record straight, we have the top management represented by ED Kichi sir today, along with a very eminent panel which comprises of uh, professors and scientists from the bioengineering and biochemical department at IIT Bombay, and very eminent doctors, Dr. Mehta and Dr. Arora. So, before I hand over to ED sir to give his opening comments, I will just relay the profiles of the eminent panelists that we have today. Um, Professor Ambarish Kuwar, Professor Kiran Kondabkil, and Professor Neeta Kanikar are professors at the Bioengineering Department at IIT Bombay, and they have decades of experience in dealing with quality improvement processes, biosafety hazards at large corporations such as the bank. We have Dr. Mehta, who's a senior pulmonologist, uh, which is largely to do with respiratory systems. I didn't know this. For those of us who didn't know, and he's the intensivist at the UN Mehta Institute of Cardiology Hospital in Ahmedabad. He's also the honorary pulmonologist to His Excellency the Governor of Gujarat. We have Dr. Manjeet Singh Arora, who is the senior physician at Fortis Hospital in Mumbai, and he has conducted a lot of modules around quality improvement processes and continuing education programs on laboratory and ergonomic safety for engineers, for faculty and staff members. So we believe this would be very useful for the staff members. I would now request ED Kichi sir to kindly provide his opening comments for the webinar. Sir.
Well, good evening and thank you, Akhil. We're slightly delayed, so I'll not take much time in that. Very good afternoon and a very hearty welcome to this webinar on achieving biosafety in COVID-19 times. As a preamble to this webinar, I would like to briefly touch upon the close partnership that Bank of Baroda has built with IIT Mumbai through the Bank of Baroda IIT Bombay Innovation Center, a first of its kind initiative with industry academia partnership focused on the fintech innovation. This collaboration helps us to tap into a wide range of expertise that IIT Bombay has to offer, including biosafety and biochemistry. Considering that most of our staff members have some kind of public interaction on a very frequent basis, this webinar for the bank staff members has been arranged to enable them to achieve optimum biosafety standards and have clarity around evolving COVID-19 situation. This webinar on achieving biosafety in COVID-19 times is being conducted by a panel of distinguished professors from IIT Bombay, along with prominent doctors from renowned medical institutions. Coming to the event flow, this webinar has been structured to cover relevant topics, beginning with an introduction on biosafety and biohazards, followed by discussions on infectious diseases in the banking sector, implications in the current scenario, routes of exposure through infectious agents, bacteria, virus, and other infectious agents, how COVID-19 is different from earlier outbreaks, methods for prevention and management, best practices suggested by scientists and health workers, and the myths and facts related to COVID-19. Thereafter, we shall have a question and answer session. So we, friends, have a very, very distinguished and eminent panelists with us, and three eminent professors from IIT and two eminent doctors. I take pleasure in introducing Dr. Parthiv Mehta, who, apart from his professional interaction, happens to be a personal friend also from Ahmedabad. And I welcome all the eminent panelists. A brief introduction has already been given by Akhil, so I'll not take much of your time, and I'd like to hand it over to Professor Neeta Kanekar. Thank you.
Neeta, your mic is off.
Neeta, your mic is off.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So yes, thank you, Mr. Kichi and Mr. Handa, for having us here. I'll just keep it brief. I'll just add to what Mr. Kichi said, that the goal of this webinar, or the way we sort of envisioned it, is that we all understand that the only way forward with COVID till a treatment or vaccine comes out is to learn to sort of live with it, and live with it in a very responsible way. And so long-term changes in behavior and habits are going to be really the mainstay of dealing with COVID. And towards that, for any habit to be changed, we need to understand and be convinced why it has to happen. So the spirit of this webinar is really to therefore take you to the roots, grassroots of how infections occur, and what are the different ways, etc. And therefore why hygiene and best practices are therefore scientifically, why are they the best way for us to deal with COVID. So without much ado, I'll get started, and Professor Kiran Kundabagil from IIT Bombay will be our first speaker, telling you the basics of infection.
You can see my screen. Can you see my
Yes.
screen? Yeah.
Yes.
Hello everyone. My name is Kiran. My last name is hard to pronounce, so we will leave it at that. And I'm not going to bore you with too much of biology of these viruses, but I just want to give you a sense of what these viruses are and how they cause disease, and basically what is the most relevant thing for us in a working environment, right? So basically, if you look at the biosafety and biohazard, right, as the biosafety basically concerns safety from exposure to infectious agents, right? So what are these infectious agents? They can be anything from virus, bacteria, fungi, protozoans, multicellular parasites, etc. But most of the human diseases are caused by viruses and bacteria, and this coronavirus is one of them. And you have heard about malaria. Malaria is caused by a protozoan. And any of these viruses or bacteria or the carriers of these viruses and bacteria, including bodily fluids of human beings, they are all considered as biohazard, right? If somebody is talking, so we'll come to all of this later. And any material that may be potentially infectious, right? This could even include currency notes, coins, surfaces of the table, wallet, anything that has come into contact with an infectious individual. We have to treat it with extreme care, and this is what is known as biohazard. And in order for us to appreciate, the key safety measures, one needs to have some understanding of the virus. That will probably lead to good safety measures and good hygiene practices, and most importantly, as Professor Neeta has mentioned, workplace and behavior modifications, which are most difficult to implement, right? So if you want to look at these virus, this is really small, and this is how it looks, and you see it has all these small projections, right? This is what you see on a crown, and that's how they get their name. Corona stands for something on the crown of kings, of Roman kings and things like that. And if you want to look at the virus, it looks actually very nice and beautiful. It has all these projections. through some of these projections, it basically go and bind to our lung cells and cause infections, right? So we don't really need to go into a lot of details of this virus, but we know the entire genetic makeup of this organism. We also know how it infects. We also have figured out how it causes the disease and how the disease manifests itself. And it's only a matter of time one of us will come up with a vaccine and as well as antiviral for this virus, right? So that is the good news, but that will take some time, about I would say 18 to 24 months. Now, if you look at the recent past, about 35 years ago, probably I have listed many of these viruses here, and I'm sure you know about all of this. You have HIV influenza virus, and there are many types of influenza viruses. Probably you're also familiar with Ebola, Zika, chikungunya viruses and all, and have added this recent coronavirus to the list as well. So these are some of the animals that are basically reservoirs of these viruses, and just one or two changes in their genome basically make them change the host and come into contact with human beings. And some of the viruses, I have labeled them in red. Basically, they are transmitted in Africa, not from China, as against popular perception. I have listed 11 viruses. Only 3 of them that are listed in blue, right, have emerged out of China, right? And these virus infections are so popular that Hollywood has made a lot of these movies, and it starts from 1970s. And the most recent ones are this Contagion and World War Z. I highly recommend this movie Contagion because this talks about the previous coronavirus infection. And if you want to know anything about coronavirus, and this is the movie to watch, it is available on Amazon Prime and Netflix and many different places. So I highly recommend this movie. Right now, coming to the routes of exposure of infectious agents. Basically, most of these viruses and bacteria enter into our body either through our eyes or through nose, mouth, and in some rare cases through skin, right? And if you look at this coronavirus, people are now thinking that it can also enter through eyes as well, because in some rare cases, people have found the presence of virus in human tear as well. But the chances of causing an infection through tear is very, very low. Right, so the major route of infection is through inhalation and ingestion, and skin penetration happens in the case of many different viruses. Probably you have heard about dengue virus, where it is caused by malaria. Malaria basically carry malarial, and malaria, right? So mosquito carries these pathogens, and when they bite you, they basically inject some of these viruses. But in this case, we don't really have to worry about that, right? Our major concern is inhalation and ingestion, either through mouth and nose. So these are the major routes. And believe it or not, there are many scientists in the world who are basically studying the dynamics of cough and sneeze, right? To just understand how these viruses spread, and mostly respiratory related viruses like influenza and coronaviruses. So just to give you an understanding, if somebody is infected and if that person coughs, he or she releases anywhere from 1 to 2 to even 5 billion virus particles, right? And each cough contains about 3,000 drops, and it travels at 50 miles per hour. And people have figured out all the things about, talking, sneeze, breathe, and things like that. And here are some staggering numbers, right? When we sneeze, we release about 2 billion viruses, and it releases 20,000 droplets. But even just a simple act of breathing, right? It releases 20 virus particles per minute. I know you just keep these numbers in mind because we'll get back to this. And speaking means we start breathing heavily. It releases slightly more virus particles. But good thing with both breathing and speaking, they are of much lower velocity, right? And these droplets that through cough and sneeze are the major carriers of infection for both corona and influenza A viruses, right? And people have also figured out the sizes of the droplets, how they travel in the air, what is the role of aerosols and things like that. Some of the larger droplets that carry millions and millions of viruses, they go down very quickly. But in some cases, they are basically carried through tiny aerosols, and they can infect people that are quite farther away. In many cases, they go and deposit on many things like your laptop or table and things like that. So we call this as fomite route of infection, right? And this is where wearing a mask makes a big difference. If somebody is wearing a mask and coughing, most of the viruses are contained within the mask itself. And if the second person is also wearing a mask, most of it does not even, they do not even enter through the mask. So basically you're blocking these two routes of, infection, right? And basically inhalation of aerosols is a major concern when it comes to coronaviruses, and many of the other things are not so much of a concern. And direct contact and mucosal membranes of eye, nose, or mouth, they also cause these viruses to infect, right? And how about toilet waste? Now I'm actually I've been funded a project by DST to see whether wastewater contain these viruses, because many of the infected individuals basically shed a lot of these viruses in the fecal matter, right? So this is especially becomes very important in public places when using toilet. When we flush, all these aerosols are released, and they take anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes to settle down, right? If somebody uses the toilet, we probably have to wait for at least few minutes before somebody else uses, or the best practice is to close the lid and then flush, right? This is like wearing a mask, and this is something that we don't really pay attention to. In many cases, our toilet waste can contain millions and millions of viruses, right? And we also shed a lot of bacteria, but I don't really have time to go into all of that. And these aerosols take anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes to settle down, because these are really tiny particles. They are simply hanging and floating in the air. And if somebody goes and breathes these particles in, and in many cases they get infected, right? So now coming to the third thing, how this COVID-19, right? This coronavirus is different from earlier outbreaks. We had two very similar viral outbreaks. One was in 2003, and the other one was, I think, in 2013 or so. So the first one was mainly in China. Second one, ME stands for Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome, right? These viruses were a lot more aggressive, and the disease showed up much more quickly within 1 or 2 days. So as a result, the infected individual had very less time to infect others. Whereas in the case of COVID-19, the problem is these asymptotic individuals, right? Many of them carry this virus. They don't even know they are shedding this virus, and thereby, virus can never go out of the population, right? And two other things that people have noticed, scientists have noticed about these viruses. This COVID-19 virus is a lot more stable outside of the human body. If somebody coughs and deposits these droplets, right, cough droplets on a table, if it is a metal surface, it can stay for 3 to 5 days. And if it is a wooden surface, it can stay even for 7 days. And if somebody accidentally touches with their bare hand and then touches their nose or mouth, I think they will take enough particles to start the infection, right? So this is something that scientists have figured out. And COVID-19 virus has also some mutations that make them very efficient in finding the host for their replication, for binding and causing the disease, right? So this is how they are different. And coming to the banking sector, basically, once you know a little bit about this virus, we really have to have some way of changing our behavior. And obviously, you guys know better than me about this. Of course, there will be a significant decrease in physical contact. And although there is no evidence that these coronaviruses, can cause infection through currency notes and coins, we cannot take any chances. So some of the considerations are basically, have open ventilation. Thereby, you don't have the circulating. You would basically diffuse off all the aerosols. and then possible modifications to employee seating and things like that. And other things are the hygiene measures and things like that. Professor Ambrish Kunwar will talk about that. So quickly, I will capture take-home message from these 10 minutes that I spent. You have to keep in mind that 44% of all infections are caused by asymptomatic individuals, right? And the major route of disease transmission is through respiratory droplets and contact routes. And I have just asked one question: where are people getting sick? Most people get infected in their own home, right? From asymptomatic family members or from a few careless workers, right? And this is the infectious dose. If these viruses, they have to attack in large numbers. If just one or two viruses enter your body or my body, they are basically taken care of by our immune system. So at least 1,000 particles has to enter to cause the disease. So this number is very, very important. And this is the successful formula for virus, right? Exposure to virus into time. So the more the virus that gets into you, the better are the chances of infection. And how do we successfully dodge the virus? Of course, these have been probably ingrained in you by now. In the last 3 months, all these TV commercials, and you have been getting all these masks, and we need to invest in a really good mask, and we need to avoid talking to people too much. And of course, Professor Ambrish Kunwar now will tell you about how to, what is the best practice, best way to, wash your hands with soap and water. And as scientists have figured out, using too much of hand sanitizers, right? These alcohol-based sanitizers are not really good for you. It can cause many other different conditions. So soap is the best solution for you, right? So I will stop here, and I will request Professor Ambrish Kunwar to take over, and we will address all your concerns, questions at the end of the, all the talks. Thank you.
Hanika, okay, I'm going to pick it up.
Professor Ambrish, you're live.
Yeah, I'm live. Okay. So thank you very much, Kiran. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to talk about biosafety and especially about bank sectors, how to be safe in the time of COVID-19. So I'm Ambarish, and I'm in the same department as in Kiran at IIT Bombay. So all of us know that, like other essential workers, medical doctors, delivery persons, bank employees are also one of the people who are involved in essential services. And through various news outlets, there is plenty of news that bank employees are also getting affected by COVID-19 because of their day-to-day interaction with the public as well as related travels for the purpose of the job. This is a brief history of some of the pandemics which has happened in past, and Professor Kiran has already given you name of some of the outbreaks. For example, smallpox, which happened in very far in the history. Then most recent ones are the yellow fever, Ebola, MERS, and SARS. Now, if you and this is the figure from the March 15th, but now we know that it is more than 300K, the total deaths so far. So if you compare COVID-19 with the other outbreaks which we had in past, if you look at the infectivity of the COVID-19 is slightly more infective than the seasonal flu. However, the case of fatality is not very different from the seasonal flu. But if you look at the other outbreak which happened mostly in African countries, which is Ebola, in this case the infectivity was quite large, and the death of if you look at the rate of mortality, that was also quite high. So what I'm going to show you is a small video on Ebola, and this video has a lot of messages which are there. So what I want that you first look at this video, and then I will further discuss what are the important things which we can learn from this video. So this video is about a village which was affected by Ebola and how they got rid of it.
This is the story of how my village survived Ebola. Bats brought the tiny Ebola germs, too small to see, so small, yet so dangerous. Without realizing, Grandfather rubbed a little blood in his eye. Ebola germs came into his body. Days went by. Then Grandfather got a terrible fever and weakness. We thought it was malaria, but he was soon much worse. He had vomiting and diarrhea. His fever got even higher. I ran to get the nurse. But Grandfather had already died. I was heartbroken. The nurse thought it might be Ebola, a disease caught from bush meat, but which spreads from person to person. Others in our region had already died of this new disease. Unless we understood the disease and followed their rules, it could spread further and kill many more people. She explained that Ebola was in the body fluids of someone who was sick or had died of Ebola. Their sweat, tears, mucus, saliva, vomit, diarrhea, urine, breast milk, sexual fluids, and blood. When we touch a sick person's body fluids, the Ebola germs can get into small breaks in our skin or into our eyes, nose, or mouth. The Ebola germs spread into our body and make us sick. When somebody dies of Ebola, that body is much more contagious. No one should ever touch the dead body. The nurse advised us to wash our hands with soap and water right away. She contacted the trained burial team to help us bury Grandfather's body safely. The burial team came. They comforted us and explained what they had to do to protect us. The team wore protective clothing that kept them safe from the dangerous germs. They sprayed Grandfather's room and his body with chlorine to destroy the Ebola germs. They put his body safely away in a bag. To prevent the spread of Ebola, no one could touch the body of anyone who had died with signs of the disease. They also burned his mattress, bedding, and clothes, anything that might have his germs. All these actions made us safer. It was too great a risk to follow all our traditions, but we still honored Grandfather in the time of Ebola. Our chief gathered all the villagers together after Grandfather's death. He explained that it's natural for us to fear Ebola, but if we trust in our health workers and follow their rules, we could stop the disease. The nurse explained to us, when a person has symptoms such as fever, don't touch them. Get them to the treatment center right away. They will have the best chance of surviving and they won't spread Ebola. She advised us to wash our hands with soap and water many times a day. The whole village agreed to follow these rules. Since we all had close contact with Grandfather, we were at risk of getting Ebola. We had to stay home. A health worker visited us every day to see whether we had fever or signs of sickness. We would show signs within 21 days if we had Ebola. Many days passed, and I thought we would all stay healthy. But one morning, I found my mother burning with fever. I knew I couldn't touch her. She was now contagious. My father came in. He told me he was taking my mother away to our uncle's house in the nearby village. He was afraid to take her to the treatment center, afraid he'd never see her again. I knew I had to stop them. I was young, but I stood up to both of them. I told them if this could be Ebola, she must go to the treatment center right away. We needed to trust in our health workers to save her, save ourselves, and save our village. I saw in their faces that they understood. Running away would only lead to more death and suffering. My mother tested positive for Ebola. They found her a bed. At first, the health workers looked scary, but I knew they wore the suits to protect themselves. And inside, they were normal people like the nurse. They took good care of my mother. They gave her fluids, medicine, and food, and helped her body stay strong to fight Ebola. I missed my mother very much, but I could still talk to her on the phone. Sadly, some people in my village didn't survive, but my mother got better day by day. Soon, we were able to see her from a safe distance. One day, the nurse announced that my mother would live. Now we were safe to hug and kiss her. It was a day to celebrate. Our village followed their rules. We trusted our health workers, brought us sick for care right away, called for the safe burial team when one of our people died, and we always wash our hands with soap and water. Our village survived Ebola. Yours can too.
All right, so I will now stop this video. So what is shown in this video is that how many ways one person can infect others, and what are the different ways one can get infected through the bodily fluids. This video also shows the importance of hand washing. Now, as far as banking sector is concerned, it's very important for bank employees to practice the hand hygiene thoroughly, because it is very well documented that the currency notes are carriers of different kinds of pathogens. For example, E. coli, salmonella, hepatitis, influenza virus, and we also know that the recent coronavirus can also survive on papers for extended period of time. And therefore, it becomes very important for the bank employees who deal with currency notes and papers to practice the hand hygiene, and you cannot avoid it at any cost while working, while you are on job or you are at home. Now, whenever people talk about the hygiene, there are 4 words which are not very clear to the people. What is the meaning of cleaning? What is the meaning of sanitization? What is the meaning of disinfection? And what is the meaning of sterilization? Now, for a common person, all of these 4 words might mean the same thing, but each of them refer to a different level of killing of the viruses and bacteria. For example, when we talk about cleaning, it is mostly involves removing the dirt from the surfaces. When we talk about the sanitization, it only kills some of the reduces the number of bacteria and viruses on the surface to an acceptable level. When we talk about the disinfection using the medically approved chemical reagents, then it reduces the number of bacteria and viruses on the surface by a large amount. And sterilization means complete killing of bacteria and viruses, which is generally required for the medical procedures, for example, surgery. So this is how I can show them as a pyramid, that cleaning is at the bottommost level, and sterilization is at the topmost level. And sterilization means 100% removal of pathogens. So what I will do first, since hand hygiene is so important that it can help you to do the sanitation and to bring down the level of bacteria and viruses to a safer level, which is not able to infect you, I will play 2 videos which show the correct hand wash and correct hand rubbing procedure, because everyone tells you how to do, you should do the hand wash and you should do the hand rubbing with the alcohol based formulation. But normally people are not shown the proper way of doing a hand wash and proper way of doing a hand rubbing. So I will request you to put 2 minutes to understand the proper procedure of hand wash and proper procedure for a hand rubbing using alcohol based sanitizers. So let me first play the first video.
Hand washing should take you about 1 minute. Use a timer or count from 1 to 10 in each of the following steps. Wet hands with water and apply enough soap to cover all surfaces of the hands. Let the water run smoothly to avoid touching the tap later on. Rub hands palm to palm to obtain a good quantity of foam. Then rub right palm over the back of left hand with interlaced fingers, and vice versa. Rub again palm to palm with fingers interlaced. Rub the back of your fingers to opposing palms with fingers interlocked, repeating this action for each hand. Rub rotationally left thumb clasped in right palm, and vice versa. To clean the tips of the fingers, rub rotationally backwards and forwards with clasped fingers of right hand in left palm, and vice versa. Rinse hands thoroughly with running water. Dry hands thoroughly with a single-use towel. If the tap is not elbow operated, use this towel to turn off the tap without touching it directly. Your hands are now clean and safe.
Alright, now let's look at the proper hand rubbing procedure using alcohol-based combinations.
Please note that this technique is not appropriate when hands are visibly dirty or after using the toilet. In these cases, hand washing is required. Hand rubbing should take you 20 to 30 seconds. Use a timer or count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in each of the following steps. Apply a palmful of alcohol-based hand rub in a cupped hand, enough to cover all surfaces of the hands. Rub hands palm to palm, then rub right palm over the back of left hand with interlaced fingers, and vice versa. Rub again palm to palm with fingers interlaced. Rub the back of your fingers to opposing palms with fingers interlocked, repeating this action for each hand. Rub rotationally left thumb clasped in right palm, and vice versa. To clean the tips of your fingers, rub rotationally backwards and forwards with clasped fingers of right hand in left palm, and vice versa. Once dry, your hands are now clean and safe.
Alright, so now we'll stop this video here. One can avoid the infections while working, while at job, while at home by just practicing the hand wash very often. However, the people who work in the health sector, they take different level of precautions depending on the level of interaction with different types of patients. And these are some of the recommendations of the PPE. We will not go into the details of that. Similarly, scientists have to also work on these infectious bacteria and viruses. And there are different level of precautions that one has to take depending on the severity of the infection. For example, if somebody is not working with infectious pathogens, then he can work in a BSL-1 lab where one can simply wear a lab coat, gloves, and specs just to avoid the infections. However, people who work with very deadly viruses and other pathogens, for example, Ebola, smallpox virus, they have to take a lot of precautions, and the facility in which they work have to be also specifically designed. So this is something which is called BSL-4. What is recommended to work on coronavirus is that one should have at least a BSL-3 level laboratory. In a BSL-4 laboratory, in addition to everything, people also wear a positive pressure suit. We will not go into the details of this because for a general person, wearing the hand mask and practicing the hand hygiene is good enough. Now, I'm going to play another video which shows how you can prevent the spread of COVID-19 in a workplace setting and how you can avoid yourself from getting infected. So let's watch this video.
Preventing COVID-19 in your workplace or while teleworking. There are several things you can do to protect yourself and others from COVID-19 in your workplace, whether you are at your work site or teleworking at home. Follow distancing measures issued for your location and stay informed through information from trusted sources, such as WHO and your local health authority. Stay at home and avoid direct contact with anyone if you feel unwell or even have a mild cough. This will help protect your colleagues at work and your family members at home. If you are feeling well and need to go to work, you can reduce your risk of catching the virus by avoiding crowded public transport. If possible, go by bike or walk. Otherwise, if possible, discuss with your supervisor if you can work from home. At work or at home, if you can, use the stairs instead of elevators. Avoid using your hands to touch common objects like elevator buttons, door handles, or staircase railings. If you work in an office, create distance-based meetings either through video conferencing or by maintaining at least 1 meter space between people in the same room. If you work in contact with the public, stay at least 1 meter away from others as much as you can. After commuting to and from work and throughout the day, clean your hands frequently and thoroughly. Avoid touching your eyes, mouth, and nose. Ventilate your workplace regularly, keeping the windows open if possible. Make sure tables, door handles, and other frequently touched surfaces are disinfected regularly. Avoid crowded places and unnecessary public activities. Find no-contact ways to greet your colleagues and express affection to your friends and family. While maintaining physical distance, stay social. Contact your family and colleagues regularly to check how they are coping. Remember to seek ways to stay active and positive. Stay healthy, and let's all prevent the spread of COVID-19.
All right. Now let's look at some of the common myths and facts related to coronavirus. First thing is that the thermal scanners which are being used in multiple places, they cannot detect COVID-19. They are there only just to check whether a person is having a fever or not. In order to test whether somebody is really suffering from COVID-19, one has to go for a laboratory test. The second common myth is that coronavirus spreads is spreading faster in the countries where there is 5G mobile network. This is not true. It has nothing to do with the 4G or 5G mobile networks. Then the other common myth is that if you are in a hot weather or you are staying inside for a longer time, then you can get rid of coronavirus. That is again not true, that it does not prevent or cure the COVID-19. Then the next thing which I have also seen through WhatsApp University, that if you can hold your breath for a certain time, you can diagnose whether you are suffering from coronavirus or not, which is not true. Holding your breath for a given amount of time is no guarantee that you are whether affected by COVID-19 or not affected by COVID-19. Then COVID-19 can be transmitted in any kind of climate, so it can be transmitted in hot and humid climate. So this is not true that when the summer time will come, we will get rid of the coronavirus. Similarly, it has nothing to do with the season, and therefore cold weather and snow cannot again kill the novel coronavirus. Taking a hot bath will again not prevent the spread of new coronavirus disease. Will not help you to get remain safe from COVID-19. Then the next myth is that coronavirus can be also spread by the mosquitoes. There is no documentation of the spread of coronavirus through mosquitoes. Sometimes people think that the heat dryers which are installed in the bathrooms are good enough to kill the coronavirus. That is not correct. In addition to do the only way to get rid of coronavirus is to do the proper hand wash. I'm sorry.
Just a time check.
Yeah. Then you should never use ultraviolet light directly on your skin, because you can burn your skin, causes cancer. So UV light cannot kill the coronavirus. Similarly, if you have been vaccinated against pneumonia, it cannot again protect you against coronavirus. If you regularly rinse your nose with saline spray, it does not prevent you from the infection from the coronavirus. Eating garlic will not help you to get rid of coronavirus. Then coronavirus affects the people of all ages. It doesn't differentiate between the ages. However, the rate of survival does depend on the age and the health of the person. Then antibiotics are not effective against preventing the person against coronavirus, because coronavirus, COVID-19 is a viral disease and antibiotics are there for bacterial diseases. Then till date, there is no specific medicine to treat the novel coronavirus. Similarly, adding pepper to your soup and other meals does not prevent or cure COVID-19. And again, COVID-19, similar to mosquitoes, it is not transmitted through houseflies. Don't spray your body with bleach and other disinfectant because they will not protect you against COVID-19 and can be dangerous. Similarly, drinking methanol, ethanol, and bleach does not prevent or cure COVID-19 and can be again extremely dangerous for health. So don't practice all of this. Now, as Professor Kiran Kondabagil has given you suggestion for a movie to watch, I also will suggest you to watch a very nice movie which is based on Nipah virus outbreak in India, and this is a very nice movie without much Bollywood drama. So I will highly recommend you to watch this movie. This movie is available on Amazon Prime. And thank you very much for your attention. Now I hand over the control to Dr. Mehta for the next talk.
Dr. Mehta, you're still muted.
Yes. Good evening, all of you, and I sincerely thank Mr. Kichi for having given me this opportunity to be in connect with one of the largest banking organization of this country and which can have an impact on how COVID is controlled through the banking sector. That is what probably is going to be my talk on communication to the bankers of this country. I sincerely thank my previous speakers. They have given an elaborate idea to non-medical people or a layman, but still it has given a good idea about how best can we deal with it. I would just try to go a step forward from where we have been left. Number one, as a doctor, I would like to communicate a very simple thing, because when we are worried about COVID and Corona, when it comes in and it gives us some symptoms, I would try to take you through a smaller journey of COVID. How does it come in our body and how does it affect our functionality and how does the symptoms come in? Though I'm going to use a sort of a presentation or rather a document, this document would be something like it's a Word document, but I'm going to take you through the journey with the COVID as it is. I'm trying to include a document here. I suppose now it is visible. And with this, what I'm trying to show you is about our lungs. Our lungs are one of the largest organ in the body, and it is having a surface area nearer to 60 to 75 square meters. So every moment when we are breathing in and breathing out, within a second, lung would take oxygen, would throw out carbon dioxide. It would also help us to maintain the level of our pH, because which is very important. We produce acid every moment when we burn glucose with oxygen. It also helps us in temperature regulation, because when we get fever, we start breathing faster. So when somebody is acquiring COVID or Corona, as we have been told already, it traverses through the nose and it gets inside the lung. And the lung is made of 300 million alveoli. And this alveoli would be the breathing functioning unit. And when it gets affected, it is just like when we have something getting stuck inside, a kind of a funnel, or when it is stuck inside the strainer, which we use to prepare tea. When it is there, we try to clean it off by putting it against the surface, tap, tap, tap. The same way, our lung would start coughing to throw it out of the body. But just because it is very sticky, it likes the lungs very well, it does not go out, and it gets inner and inner surface. So we start having some difficulty to breathe. Because it's an infection, it leads to some inflammation, that is swelling and pain. And because it raises the temperature, we start getting fever. And that is how we start picking up somebody having COVID, somebody having cough, somebody having breathlessness, somebody having fever, and somebody starts with running nose, loss of sensation to smell, and having tasted. If we do not get aware at that time, if we do not catch them there at that point, it would happen that probably the patient would go more severer and will have heavy breathing, will start getting their nails blue, will have red frozy sputum. That is the severity wherein generally people approach the hospital. And if at that time, if it is too late, because the age group is higher, there are comorbidities, patients get into an irreversible status, which is called an ARDS. So why I'm telling you all this is that in case if we can pick up at an earlier stage where we can catch them here, or in a moderate stage of acute respiratory insufficiency, we have a chance to survive, we have a chance to go back. It can be we ourselves, it can be our family, it can be our neighbor, or even it can be somebody wherein somebody is staying in nearer or coming to our back. Now, when we are talking about the acute lung injury and acute respiratory insufficiency, which can go back to normal, but if it is going to a stage of ARDS, that is respiratory distress, sometimes we miss the bus. So having missed the bus, the problem is that probably we would not be able to revive that patient back, and that is where probably we'll have a problem on getting these patients back to their normal functionality and they lose their life. Having said this, I'm now going to change the presentation to another presentation, what we can do as a bankers in a newer normal scenario. The newer normal scenario is the scenario wherein probably we would be coming across a system wherein we as bankers would like to contribute. And when we start contributing to the newer scenario, which is a newer normal, there are something new which is coming in. And what new comes in is something as a new normal. I'm going to share with you a newer presentation. Within 10 minutes, I'll take you through the journey of the new normal, which would be a good thing to know for all of us. I'm taking this presentation with the idea that we are the bankers and what we can do, but bankers would always be having an eye over the number of COVID, and we all are very eager to see to it that this starts getting normal or lower. Though it is a red line here, but we would wish that this red line becomes green zone for us and we start getting back to normal. So what we would discuss, one is the human body and impact of lockdown, because we have been locked down for long. It is nearly 2 months. There is an infodemic. We need to understand the new normal and we need to get prepared for a healthy new normal and what we can contribute as a bank. Our human body has been gifted for free. In case if we start buying all these organs and assemble it, it would be more than 150 CR probably, or even more than that. These organs work in synchronization, or they work with each other so well that these organs would be handling each other with a homeostasis. Like any bank or any organization has homeostasis amongst the workers, homeostasis amongst the officials, homeostasis amongst their customers and themselves also. The same way here is. But sometimes some nasty customer comes in and they start creating an issue, and that is what COVID has done to us. COVID has made us to go into a lockdown. So the lockdown has given us a huge impact. It has affected our day-to-day thinking, our activities. So it has affected our immunity, it has affected our respiratory system, it alters our digestive system, it also affects cardiovascular system, it has its impact on eyes, muscular system. We have been knowing all this. Why am I telling you? The reason I'm telling you is that if we understand that it has all this impact, probably it would not affect badly as it is affecting us right now. It leads to anxiety, it leads to depression, and that mind and body impact each other, and it makes it look more worse. It is not so bad, it is not so worse. Like this planet is for human being, it is also for the viruses. We need to learn how to live with them. We all know how to follow the charts of share and stocks, or probably follow our children's marks card, but we do not know how to follow what we are being thrown in with the numbers. I'm going to take you through these numbers to make it see very easy. On the left side, we see that there is a slide which takes it that 0 to 20 years, there are 8.61% of people who are affected by COVID out of total 100%. 21 to 40, which is our working population, gets affected by 42%. 41 to 60 years is 32 to 33%, and over 60 years is 17%. So we feel that we are working population 21 to 60 and we are contributing nearly 75% of the total population, which is affected. No, the problem here is that we have to see is the population breakdown. If you see the breakdown, 3 plus 12, 15% are there between 0 to 20 years, and they are contributing only half of that. The reason being their immune system function is better. They are not hyper reactive to immunity. The more our immunity is hyper reactive, we get affected. The next card is between 21 to 40 years, and that is 46% vis-a-vis 42% contribution by that group. It means that they are contributing at the same percentage of population they are contributing in the population as a patient population. So it is not an additional impact to them. Same way is for 41 to 60 years. There is 37% or 36% of the total population contribution, which is 33% to them. But the problem is 60 years and over, they are contributing nearly 3 to 4% of total population versus 17% of the population of patients affected by COVID. So there is an impact of risk stratification and age onto this. So do not get afraid by these numbers. This number just simply are making us to understand how do we have to behave in a newer normal, newer standards of living. So new normal is a previously unfamiliar or atypical situation that has now become a standard, usual and expected. I sincerely thank the organization for having taken us through this journey of what can be the new normal. The new normal encourages one to deal with the current situation rather than lamenting what would have been done. This is very improved. Sorry?
In case if you're running your presentation, I think that presentation is not flipping through the pages.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Fine, then I can just stop it and I can talk about. That's easier.
Yeah, no, I think if you would like to run it to second page, third page, because it is stuck on the first page.
Oh, why is it so? I'm running it right now. Anyway, let me discontinue this. I'll speak about that.
Now it is running. Now it just moved to the second page, I think.
Oh, okay. Fine. So what do you want me to do?
I think you can just continue, but just bear in mind that, you know, I think there is some issue in the projection of the presentation. So you may just want to talk about it.
Okay, then I'll get through it and I'll just talk about it so it doesn't have any issues, right?
Are you able to see your presentation, Doctor?
Is it moving?
No, at the moment it is frozen on a second slide, slide number 2. No, slide number 11, I guess.
Okay, now have we come on new normal now?
You have come on the new normal, yes. What to expect, banking perspective.
Fine, fine. Okay, so now let us come on to new normal because which is very important for us as a bankers. First is that we have been told about the transport. Second, we have been told about the office hygiene. Third is very important about meeting the clients. And while we are meeting the clients, it is very important that we protect ourselves first, and then we also help our clients to be protected. About the food at institution, probably it would change. Our canteens and our mess probably would be, you know, quite separated. It would be segregated. The food quality would change, and also our eating habits and eating timings also may change. Sports events, gathering may be a far-fetched dream, and outing and tours probably may not be something which can be seen soon in a banking sector. So there would be a lot of grief, anxiety, depression, worry until and unless we are trained well and we are informed well. And thanks to the organization, it has been doing well. So when we are not informed well, what happens is there is first of all, there is always a disbelief. Why should I do this? But we have been given to this input that we have to do it. We have to wash our hands. We have to put on the masks. The anger, sadness and acceptance would be out of the stage and optimism would come in. We are now towards a stage of acceptance and optimism because we have passed through the first 3 stages in first 2 to 3 months. So what I would put in forward is more and more people, in case if they start participating in the process, wherein they can help those who are having still into the stage of anger, sadness and they can bring them to acceptance that this is a new normal. This is what we have to optimize for, and we will be coming back to our normal soon, or we can achieve it soon. How can we do that? We have to learn something. We have to unlearn something probably is incorrect, as we have been said about the WhatsApp University, and we can relearn about our body. When we can relearn about our body, our requirements, the guidelines to follow, and we can understand about the new targets and new approaches, in that case, it would be very easy for us so that we can deal with the situations so well, so that we are not much worried about something unusual happening to us or something unusual taking away our life. So if that we can be done, in that case, probably we would be able to very easily bring back the normalcy. We know that the lung is an organ which is the largest. I've already taken you through. The only thing I would like you to know is it is exposed to environment by 24/7 by 365. So we have to protect our lung, and best way to protect we have been told about. But how can we protect our healthy normal? We can protect it by these 4 ways. This would be the new normal. To do regular exercise, to do regular yoga, to have good healthy diet, and have something detox kind of a thing. This would be bringing us immunity. Immunity cannot be brought in by single pill every day. It has to be matched with by everything. It can't be a chota sa recharge which would come every day and you can get it done. So we have to start getting embraced with this new normal. Our Indian population is very unique, and our banking sector means the working population is between 20 to 55 or 20 to 60 years of an age. What best can we do? This middle-aged can be a very good corona guide. People like us who have been trained like this can start guiding others. like they can start training others, they can start training youth. And why I'm telling you about this Corona guide is because our warriors are going to be our youth. And if we start making use of this particular device, gadgets in every bank, when we can start protecting our own employees, we can start checking them daily as per their needs. Somebody who has a high blood pressure can check their blood pressure. Somebody who has a sugar can check their sugars. Somebody who is running temperature can be asked to get 3. And everybody having Arogya Setu and becoming a Corona warrior would be a great thing as a Corona carer for us. And the more important thing is, as we have been told, we have seen that Ebola, we do not have much of medicines against this COVID. So we are fighting with the basic weapons, and we are also trying to hold it. So those who are trying to hold are going to be only and only our people that can be always brought into the things. So in that case, if can be brought into the things, they can be guided by the bank, they can be guided by the initiative by the bank, so that it can be a very good bridging the gap. If we can start bridging the gap, we can become a community bridge, so that the people who are going to take care can be guided, can be supported, can be trained, and we can bring in a newer, healthier India or newer, healthier country or community. So what would we do is, first is digital dieting. As we have been bombarded by information, lot of information and sort of a pandemic of information, we need to do digital dieting, reduce seeing newspapers, reducing WhatsApp. And then what we have to do is immune boosting diet, talking about mental health and counseling, which is very important. Bank can take up an initiative to counsel their own employees and even their customers, those who are been found to having still in the fear factor, or those who are not finding their best out of their overall. Therapeutic sleep is going to be a very, very important thing. No screen time before 2 hours of sleeping, so that we can have a nice refreshing sleep. And when we sleep at night, our CPU, which is the brain, gets cooled down, throws away bad ideas, would be ready for new ideas and new learnings. We need to exercise regularly. We have to take all our treatments regularly. When we see that there is a higher mortality, the higher mortality is only and only when we do not control our blood pressure, we do not control our diabetes, we don't take medicines for kidney, liver, whatever diseases we have, we don't care for our heart, and then we suffer. So we need to participate in all this way. And the last message to remember is, we need to take care of ourselves, but it doesn't mean that we take care of ourselves of only ourselves. We have to believe it that not me first, but it is me too. So we have to stay informed, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay happy. Thank you so much for having given me this opportunity to present with this august crowd. I sincerely apologize for having some breakups in between, and probably now we keep the things open for the rest to communicate.